Welcome everyone, Adam Edwards, CEO of Telarus, with another CEO to CEO conversation, this time with Fuze CEO Brian Day. Also, we've got the Senior Vice President of Product, Jed Brown, with us, as well as, of course, you know him, Senior Vice President of Global Channels and Alliances, Mr. Tim Puccio, to talk to us about the current environment, what's taking place, and what they're seeing from their vantage point. Of course, a lot of information coming at us. Our heads are all spinning with adjustments to new things, but someone who is not a stranger to adjustment, Brian, you go from the CFO position to CEO in late December. You guys make a huge change to the organization, pivoting to enterprise, which caused a lot of questions, a lot of adjustment going on. Then there's a global pandemic going on. I got to ask you, when's the last time you had a full night's sleep?
That's not exactly the question I was expecting at the end of that the introduction there, Adam, but thanks for asking. And I think you probably know the answer to the question based on the time I last emailed you at around 3 a.m. this morning. It wasn't last night. So, but thanks for the introduction. It's been an interesting few months. I actually took over as CEO at the beginning of December. And as you talked about, we made the change at that point in time to focus exclusively on enterprise, and it's proven to be the right call for us. I think it's allowed us to really prosper and do right by our customer base through the crisis of the past 45 to 60 days that we've all lived through.
Well, of course, making changes like that to an organization is never easy, but what did that do in terms of your ability to respond to the massive change that's taken place in the last month? Would you say were you on kind of caught on your heels? Were you in a worse position, or did it put you in a place where you felt like you could move quicker?
I think it really made us feel like we could move a lot faster, and here's why. When we looked at our customer base, we had the classic 80-20 issue where 80% of our customers were 20% of our revenue, and then conversely, 20% were 80% of our revenue. So it allowed us to really focus our energies on helping the enterprise customers in their transition over the past 45 days from a work in the office environment to a work from home environment. And a surprising number of them were you use the term caught flat-footed. That's the term that we've used internally the past few weeks. We were surprised at how many of those customers actually didn't have a really solid work from home plan, and they turned to us to help them. And I think given the fact that we had this renewed focus on enterprise, and the whole company had been thinking about enterprise for the past 3 months, it allowed us to really respond quickly, and as a result, we've gotten just a whole lot of customer testimonials over the past 3 to 4 weeks saying, "Hey, we couldn't have done it without you guys," and that's a gratifying thing to see.
Well, I have to say, from my vantage point, it was quick. You were actually ahead of the game, sending people home from work really before we did it at Telarus, and I felt like we responded quickly. But you also put a post out there on LinkedIn encouraging other tech companies in the Boston area to do the same thing, to send their employees home. And so you're really ahead of this. I've got to ask you, going back to that post, the title of it was, "Will coronavirus be the reason remote work becomes the norm?" And I'm wondering, with you seeing around the corner into what this was and sending people home, looking around the corner again, do you think this changes work patterns? Do you think this accelerates? How's your thinking changed in the last month?
Yeah, it's a great question, and getting back to where you started that question, we were the first ones in Boston, I think, to say, hey, everybody start working from home, and I sent out a note to all Fuze employees around the globe telling them the same thing. It's funny because I didn't get any responses over the weekend, and on Monday I came in and said, "Hey, did people read my email?" And the answer I got was, "Yeah, there was some background grumbling, like, what's he doing? Why are we doing this? This doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for us." And by Wednesday, interesting enough, 2 days later, I had 3 or 4 people call me saying, "Hey, you know what? That was kind of a gutsy call, but it's the right call, because look where we are." Just literally, you remember how fast things are moving at that point in the month of March. 5 days later, we were one of many companies that were sending people to work from home. So I think the fact that we did it first gave us a little bit of an advantage, because even though we've really embraced a work from home culture over the past 3 or 4 years as a company, most of our employees didn't do it on a full-time basis. So it's one thing to do it 2 or 3 times a week or 2 or 3 times a month, or to have maybe 10 to 15% of your employees do it on a full-time basis, primarily the sales and service folks. But to have 100% of your employees doing it 100% of the time, it's a lot different. And I had never done it, for instance, but I think given the fact that we all had a week or two head start doing it, it allowed us to respond to our customers when they were saying, hey, help us out here. How are we going to do this? So 2 weeks isn't a lifetime of experience, but we certainly learned, okay, this is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to feel a little different. Here are some early best practices. I think it gave us the ability to pull together some of the materials that we have right now, such as the Ultimate Guide to Work from Home, those types of things. As to your question about whether this is what's it going to be like going forward, I've been talking about this for a little while. I actually really do feel that the world has changed at this point in time, and I don't foresee us going back to the way things were in January or February or beginning of February. And I don't think any business really will. I mean, for instance, I use my corporate controller as an example. He commutes in an hour and a half to Boston every single day and an hour and a half home, between driving to the train station, taking the train into the city, and then taking the train back home at night. He's never really been a big advocate of working from home. A lot of finance people aren't, right? They want their team right there. And he said, we've been incredibly productive, and I'm now saving 15 hours a week. He goes, I don't see me and my team going back into Boston 5 days a week after this is over. I think we'll probably go in a couple days a week, but I think we're going to adopt more of a work from home culture. And I really think that the rest of the world is going to probably do the same kind of thing, as that people realize with the tools that we have out there today, you can really work from home without losing a lot of productivity. And I contrast that. I said this to somebody last week. Can you imagine if this had hit us 15 years ago? So we now have the world has the tools to effectively work from home, and I'm sure some people are losing productivity, and not all industries can do this as well as we can, obviously. But 15 years ago, nobody could have done it. This would have been really disastrous for the world economy. So I think that the good news here is that we do have the tools. We've got the ISPs that have sufficient bandwidth to allow this kind of thing to happen from people's homes, and as a result, those of us that can do it have been doing it effectively.
All right, so you see the trend, work from home accelerating. Maybe not everybody stays home, but those who can may flex, kind of like your controller and the finance team of, hey, we can do this maybe a couple days a week.
I think that's what you're going to see, yes. And for instance, we just signed a new lease for our headquarters in Boston, and we moved all onto one floor. We had 2 floors in our building before. We moved onto one floor, and I think you're going to see more and more of that. I got the idea last fall from one of our customers who had adopted. It was a very successful company, but they said, look, we kind of like using your technology and allowing our employees to work from home. Now, this is about a 15,000 employee company. But they put in a new office in the Seaport District of Boston and said, we're going to adopt hoteling, and their employees really embrace it. So I can see us moving to more of an environment like that when this all ends. When it ends, I'm not sure when that's all going to happen, obviously, but when it does end, I can see us we're going to move into a smaller space and probably adopt more of a hoteling concept for those people that choose to come in on a daily basis.
All right, so it sounds like a good thing we're not in commercial real estate, but we are in the business of enabling the work at home new model.
Yeah, I've kind of felt like that for a little bit. I think commercial real estate is going to be a challenge for certainly for the next couple of years anyway.
So tell us this. So we've got this massive shift to work at home. What was that like behind the scenes? When you look at your platform, the volume growth that you saw in terms of usage, and then how did it handle it?
We actually handled it extremely well, which I think we were thrilled to see. And I joked with our VP of engineering in an all hands meeting last week. I said, hey, first of all, the volume on our platform from the beginning of March till the end of March was a 600% increase in volume on the platform from the first week of March to the final week of March. And I actually said to him, I said, boy, if I had told you that back on March 1st, how would you have reacted? And he said, I would not have slept a wink. But I give a lot of credit to the engineering team. In the middle of March, when we started to see the real big ramp up in volume, we actually put a lot more resources on the platform, so we did not see any deterioration in performance. Our customers were happy about that. And again, I think one of the things we've always kind of really prided ourselves on is that given our enterprise customer base, and I've said this to every analyst who will listen, I say this to investment bankers, I say this to customers, what's your biggest product investment as you move into 2020 and beyond? And it's really it's continuing to stabilize and harden the platform because enterprise customers just have no tolerance for outages or even poor performance. So our engineering guys really rallied to the task, and it was really satisfying to see. And we saw that across the whole customer base. I mean, this has been a bit of a galvanizing event for the Fuze team. As we kind of feel like, hey, we're doing our part in helping the world kind of work through this, and it's a small sliver of the world that we're providing the service to, but we're doing a really good job doing it, and I think our customers will tell you the same thing.
Well, I got to tell you, that's super unsexy, that your big product focus is stability. But I got to tell you, having been through the 08-09 downturn, that's what it was all about, is everybody's looking for stability, reliability, and the other things become secondary. All the shiny things become secondary in an environment like this where it can't let me down. This is my lifeline, and it can't let me down. So I think that's fantastic. Let's move over, talk a little bit more about product. And Jed, love to hear about you from the product side. You see this massive surge in usage, 600% increase. What are some of the applications you saw for the system that maybe you didn't anticipate, maybe it wasn't really designed for, but people started doing some different things?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. And I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head. No one could predict this. And I think we drastically benefited from our approach really since we went on this endeavor of what unification really means. I think a lot of people out there are talking about, bring experiences into one app, and that's great, it's easier to deploy. And that's true, but for us, it's really about simplicity. There's a beautiful thing when you take something very complex, and while it's still powerful, make it seem and appear very simple to someone. That's when magic happens, I think, in our personal lives and in corporate lives. When we experience something, it just feels inherently easy to do and use, even if it's actually a very advanced, complex system behind the scenes. And so our approach to that has been truly mobile first, and that started really early on and is a little bit counterproductive to large enterprise. And so as an example, what we just pulled this week was the week over week increase of mobile has been 658%. Another example of that with large enterprises, historically, very large enterprise does not have a culture of turning video on. And we've seen CIOs, very aggressive CIOs, try to instill that culture within enterprise. And the only meetings where people would turn meetings or video on would be when that CIO was attending that meeting. And then every other meeting, it would never happen. And we've seen, I'm looking at the stat right now, 596% week over week growth of people turning video on. And so we were, very lucky, but also foreshadowing what it really means to be flexible. If we think about even the traditional information worker, the traditional IW, the CEO, the leadership team, sales, support, services, everyone within a company, at the end of the day, we're humans. And as humans, it means we have family, we get sick and stay home, there's commute time, there's going to lunch, restroom break, whatever it is. And mobile is actually a part of who we are. And so our focus on our web.fuze.com is a full featured experience like desktop. Our mobile devices, you don't compromise if you're trying to do anything from your iPhone or Android. And so that's a big part of our ethos, is everything you do, even if it's traditionally thought about at a desk, how do we really make it usable in your car, commuting, and when you're home or you're grabbing your partner or spouse's laptop and need to do something instantly without crazy installs. And so that kind of set up this moment for a lot of success in interesting ways. And while surprising to see that mobile growth increase, web growth increase, it's more surprising to us given our audience of large enterprise, not necessarily seeing that trend happen. And I think to your earlier point, I think that's a cultural change that is being forced upon everyone, where traditionally that change management is really hard, if your day-to-day hasn't changed at all. And that's something that, we're all seeing, over March and continuing through this adventure right now.
Well, I got to say, that's interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, that mobile growth is so high, especially when we're all supposed to be staying home. But I think, I like to be at different places in my house. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that, you're saying this growth in video. How does that 600% growth correspond to maybe growth in voice minutes? Are you seeing that it's not just that because it sounded like what you were saying was that it's not just the connections that are increasing, it's the video connections that are increasing anymore because people are actually connecting this way now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, and to your first point, it doesn't sound intuitive of, wait, people are at home, probably with their laptops, why would they be grabbing a device like this? But if you think about being pulled away from work where you're maybe traditionally using a desk phone and you're at home, your first instinct, in my opinion, is I'm going to pick the device I'm comfortable with to communicate via the phone, or I use FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever it is with my friends and family. And so inherently, you have a camera on this, that's good. You have experiences as part of your personal life that, with our experience translates really well into the enterprise. And so that's where we're seeing that growth. And over time, we saw Fuze Web and Fuze Desktop start to catch up, where people were then starting to go to web.fuze.com or acquire desktop if they even needed it, after their web experience. And so to your second question there around growth, what's interesting is individuals who active callers, they are placing more calls. It's about 20% more calls than they do normally before COVID-19. But we're also seeing a large transition in terms of call volume across the company, transitioning to what we might traditionally call meetings as well, scheduled events in the future that is an experience like what we have today. And so it's an interesting, really depending on role and scenario, we're seeing that transition of whether there's still, if it's mostly internal or external collaboration, we're seeing that shift a lot more to meetings. But a lot of the call volume has transitioned to mobile, web, and desktop. Obviously, as people aren't taking desk phones home with them.
Interesting. So you mentioned earlier that some of the difficulty there in creating the product is making it simple. The most simple things out there are actually really complex. It makes me think of the Google search bar. Just kind of this plain white space, but the complexity that goes into it, I think, is what you're talking about. Tell us this, marketing is so difficult. It's so hard to get a message out to an audience. In fact, we've got some features that are older than my high school daughter that partners don't know about. They've been around, we thought we messaged them, but they just didn't get the message. If you could tell partners about a feature or functionality that is unique to Fuze that they need to understand about Fuze, what would that be?
Oh, great question. You're going to have to stop me. I'm going to go so long. There's two things really stick out there that really excites me in terms of what we have been able to achieve as a company and what's still to come in 2020. And there's two aspects to that. The first being, as I talked about, I think traditionally we who have been doing this for a long time think about modalities. We think about, okay, PSTN, telephony, external, internal, VoIP, meetings. But for the average human, they might call what we're doing right now a call. Now, whether this was actually, we know technically behind the scenes a meeting or not, this is a call. Whether I just call you and there's video present or not, or it's scheduled in time, when we went into this unification endeavor back in 2016, it's been about blurring those lines for human, people-centric experiences where you don't have to make a choice because that choice doesn't result in you making a mistake of, oh, I meant to screen share with Adam, but I completely forgot and used the wrong tool. Those are the lines that we've been blurring. And the next aspect to that that's really complex and bringing to simple for us is the contact center space. We have really great partners where for our contact center solutions, but we also see a lot of gaps within companies where traditionally someone wouldn't raise their hand in their role or the leader of that role and say, I need a contact center solution for a lot of the complex flows and scenarios to get my job done. And so a way that we've also brought contact center into our unification is a part of simplifying what is very advanced traditional PBX UCaaS scenarios into experiences, including mobile, that feel inherently simple to any type of user, even if they really don't quite understand what a contact center is. And so an example of that, which the timing was fantastic and lucky, was a lot of the agents and supervisors from our customer bases, in 12 hours when they had to start working from home, were able to go to web.fuze.com and have the exact same experience they had at their desk. Likewise, we brought a lot of that functionality to mobile, and that's unlocked a persona that traditionally wouldn't be using a contact center product, that's able in their life, able to sign in, sign out, and participate in groups as part of the workflows of their business without truly needing to understand or even think about the complexities of what that system is behind the scenes. So those are two that get me really excited, in terms of the way we're changing what call means and what that, and now in a much more video focused world, both inside and outside of work, I think the timing couldn't be more perfect.
So what you're really saying with the things you've done in terms of blurring lines, when you talk about not forcing a person to make a decision that could be wrong, blurring the lines between a meeting and a call, and have all the feature functionality available, you're really talking about simplicity. You're really talking about simplicity and approachability, even when it comes to contact center, which I agree, we do a lot of contact center and find that most businesses don't understand they're running a contact center. If you've got an 800 number or you're interfacing with your customers in any way, you're a contact center.
Feels like a call, yeah.
And you've created an approachable methodology for people to use and spin up very easily.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, Tim, now for the hard questions. Partners are not shy about this. They want to know at any time they want to know, but now especially, are you going to pay us?
Pretty common question, Adam. So candidly, partners are a critical and essential part of our strategy, always have been, always will continue to be. And having said that, we'll continue to pay our partners on the actual billings on a monthly basis, as we always have. So no change to what we do with our customers and our partners today.
Okay, so that's kind of a layup, because we know you're going to pay partners, and I think most partners are savvy enough to know that if you're investing as heavily in the channel as you are, then you're going to pay partners.
Yeah, there was really no other answer to that question. So let's
Thanks.
It was a layup or an alley-oop, one of the two, right?
Now we're going to get past the easy, and I want you to get out your crystal ball, and because I think the real threat to all of us is attrition. The real threat is if businesses stop paying their bill, or if they, because they go out of business, or some are just conserving cash and scared, and so they're slow paying. Some unscrupulous people are just finding what they can get away with and not paying amidst the chaos. What do you anticipate in terms of attrition or slow pay, no pays? Any guesses there? And again, I'm asking you to totally get out over your skis and take a guess here. But I think partners are looking for any piece of information they can get to give them guidance on how to manage their businesses right now.
I think Brian will keep me honest on this, as he always does. But given our enterprise focus and the size of our customers, our attrition rates haven't really changed dramatically over the course of the last 3 to 6 weeks. I do, having said that, I would say we have several marquee enterprise retail customers and some other customers in volatile, business environments that we anticipate we could see some restructuring of how they work with us and services that we deliver. And frankly, we'll work with the partners to make sure that we're, aligned as we work through those scenarios should they come forward. But Brian, keep me honest here, but I don't think we're anticipating a major downturn.
No, I'll add to that a little bit. My suspicion is there'll be puts and takes here, and we started the process about a month ago because one of the concerns I had is exactly what you're talking about. Well, it's great to have business booming, and all of a sudden the volume on the platform is up all X 100% week over week. That's all nice. But what does our customer base really look like, and what's going to happen if all of a sudden the checks stop coming in here? So we did an analysis and said, okay, what is the composition of our customer base across industries? Because obviously some are more susceptible to others. Anybody in the travel space right now is hurting. Retail is hurting. Places like recruiting are probably taking a bit of a pause in their business at this point in time. I think thankfully with us, because we had never been a real vertically focused business, we don't have any industry concentration. So what we're seeing is in the places that there's softness right now in retail, and we've modeled this and we've run a bunch of different sensitivity models for the business. We've run things like, okay, what if the retail customers? What if we see like a 40 or 50% decline in receipts from the retail customers? But right now, given what we're seeing from the other parts of our customer portfolio, it more than offsets that. So we think in the long run, it's going to be beneficial. But we're also wise to the fact that there are a lot of people that are struggling out there. So we're working closely with them and watching them. And the other thing we've seen is, and this is the point you made, Adam, too, is there are customers that we would say are just kind of spraying and praying. You can see customers that have come in, and we look at their balance sheet, and they've got billions of dollars of cash. They're asking for relief. It's like, okay, we kind of see what's happening here, right? I mean, you don't get it if you don't ask for it. So we've seen situations where customers are doing that exact thing, and we're watching those things pretty closely.
Okay, great. Well, hey, one of the advantages of having a CEO with a CFO background to be able to look at that, monitor it. And I don't think any of us know what the number is going to be, and I think that's probably as close as you can get. Is we think there's going to be some damage, but in the long run, things look good. Is about the closest I've heard to the best guess.
Yeah, I think we also got a little bit lucky too. In that last fall, we closed on a big new credit facility with Alliance Bernstein. It was north of $100 million in additional credit, and the old saying is "go get it when you don't need it," which we decided to do. And in hindsight, I'm glad we did it at this point in time, because it does give us a nice war chest to survive. If the storm's worse than any of us think it's going to be, we've got a nice war chest to survive that.
That's great. That's fantastic. And good for partners to know, because they are gravitating. We're seeing them gravitate to financial strength. And it's not just the partners thinking who's going to be able to pay me. It's the customers saying, I want a reliable, known brand that's going to help me. So, Tim, final question for you. We've seen a lot of UC providers offering free service, saying, hey, 90 days free, no charge. Give it a try. We'll help you out in your time of need during your adjustment to work at home. No free offering from Fuze. Tell me about that.
The biggest questions I've answered in the last 4 weeks across the entire ecosystem, and I'll give you a couple of points to ponder and to think about. So one, we wanted to maintain our focus on our current customer base and the enterprise, and frankly, having a stable service was most important to us for our existing customer base. So that was the first kind of thought process around that. The second was, given, again, enterprise focus, we felt that, customers have woven UCaaS into their long-term disaster recovery or continuity strategy. And frankly, the freemium offers would have put a potential distraction on our team's plate from delivering that core service that we pride ourselves on. So we steered away from that. The last thing I'll tell you is, we've also been very consistent with our partners and customers. If there is a situation or if there is a scenario where we can do something special to make sure that they get onboarded quicker or they are able to adopt our service, we're happy to have those conversations. We're not turning those dialogues away given the situation we're all in. So we remain committed to the enterprise, we remain committed to that partner community, and frankly make sure we deliver a service that's paramount to none.
Okay, makes sense to me. So number one, we want to make sure our service is stable and reliable for our existing customers, and we do what we do best. And number two is we can be creative if you've got someone. Freemium usually doesn't convert, and it ends up being more of a distraction because enterprises don't necessarily purchase through that method. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing that we did, Adam, that I thought was helpful was because we had some customers that had been with us for a long time that were just straight voice customers, and they were a good example of customers that may not have been ready to have a true work from home environment. So we spun up what we called fast deployment SKUs back in early March and said, okay, for customers that need to transition really quickly and that don't have the right license from Fuze, rather than have to sign a new contract, we created these new SKUs and said, look, here you go. They're free. Use them for 60 to 90 days. We'll get this thing papered after the fact, but don't let a contract get in the way of your work from home policy. So we did do some of that work on a selective basis for customers that we needed it. So I don't want to say we certainly didn't have a freemium model, but what we didn't want to do was let economics get in the way of our customers putting their plans in place last month, and we didn't do that.
Oh, that's great. I think that demonstrates that flexibility that Tim's talking about is no, we can absolutely be flexible when there's something taking place, but we've got to reserve those resources for existing and for enterprise customers. I guess other people can FaceTime or WhatsApp or whatever else they need to do, but this is enterprise grade. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. In an environment where partners are looking for information and the facts are constantly changing because our environment's changing, this has really been a great time to get insights from you into how you're seeing the market, how Fuze is responding, and how Fuze is set up to be able to engage and support enterprise customers. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your partnership with Telarus. We appreciate what you do for us.